Hey, everybody. Welcome to This Week in Pre-IPO Stocks podcast. With me today, the one and only Nick Vusko, CEO at PM Insights, which is a pre-IPO secondary market pricing company. And for this pod today, we're going to talk about 2024 recap and also looking forward to 2025 and kind of giving kind of our outlook and forecast. But the benefit of just Nick and I is we are going to totally geek out on the inner workings of the pre-IPO stock market, I'm sure. So Nick, first of all, let's jump into 2024. We'll do a quick recap of 2024, then we can talk about 2025. But I got like kind of three questions here for us to hit on. First of all, what was some
I'm
investment
the one and
themes?
only guy on the podcast with you, so that's why I'm one and
That's
only,
right.
right? Yeah. Everyone's
Oh,
on
well,
vacation.
but you also have a special place in my heart too, because
Oh,
I love your company. So and you're generally a nice guy, and we both live on the
double
Upper East
entendre
Side.
with
So there's
that
a lot to
company
like.
aspect.
Yeah, there's a lot to like. The okay. So what do you think? Investment themes 2024. Like what like really stood out in your mind in this kind of asset class, the secondary market asset class, that from an investment perspective?
I found that hype seems to be back because you're
Mm,
seeing the AI sector take off, and I know we talk about that a lot. And then you have a lot of laggards behind it. So, for
yes.
instance, like the entertainment sector, or uh, got a a nice little pump in the fintech sector, but not quite the same as what we're seeing in AI, where some of those stocks are just up massively. But I also found that when you're looking at the total year to date numbers, because it's still, when we're recording this, the 30th of the month, expect
Right.
a nice end of year report from us next week. But
Okay.
the year to date numbers, I mean, we still lagged the S&P 500 in the private markets, just looking at the biggest 50 growth names, and also lagged the Nasdaq. I mean, everyone's pretty close, but a lot of the momentum that we ended up seeing in private markets were all within the last 6 months or so.
Okay. Yeah, and that jives with what I'm seeing too, man. Like I got to tell you, after the election, it was like risk on. The phone started to ring a lot. It got really competitive in the market when you're out trying to trade these stocks. You had to like bring your checkbook to the phone call. It was a pretty interesting
Right.
dynamic. So yeah,
Yeah, and
right after, good.
I'll put numbers to that for you to explain that dynamic away. Is if we were behind the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq for the last year, the last 6 months, it was 13% return from the growth stocks in the pre-IPO market, versus the S&P was only up 10 and the Nasdaq was 100 was only up 9. So yeah,
Right.
the whole thing flipped in the last 6 months. And as you said, a lot of that was election driven, less uncertainty in the market. People are very clear what's going to happen in 2025, right? So,
Yeah.
or
I mean,
as clear as we can be, I suppose.
yeah, it really was all AI and SpaceX, right? I mean, those were
Right.
like the big stories, I think, from an investment theme perspective. And AI was like AI infrastructure, and then what I call AI platforms, like the large language models. You know what I mean? It was all like just different components of AI. And then, but like fintechs didn't look great. There was a couple maybe outliers there, Revolut, right? A Klarna, but like fintech just didn't really quite kind of do much. Crypto was like nowhere to be found, right? I mean,
For a
so
while, until the last 3 months, right? Or
that
two
is true.
months.
You're
Yeah.
not wrong about that. Yeah, and that might see like crypto might be the big winner for 2025, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But the yeah, so like it was an all AI year, and then of course SpaceX with the big valuation pop for in December here for their tender was like eye opening, right? That was a huge increase too. But okay, let's talk about what kind of new developments are you kind of seeing in this secondary market? Is there anything notable that happened in 2024 that you think is worth talking about?
Sure. I mean, starting within the AI sector, you've always hit on a theme that's pretty cool, where you've got the infrastructure plays, which you described as your open AIs or Perplexities, Anthropics, and then you've got the app layer or the software layer. And I think we've started to really see the divergence between the two. So one
Right.
of the big names that we used to see was Sixth Sense, which is kind of like your AI-enabled buyer targeting software type idea. That's a nice example of an app or an approach that uses AI as opposed to being the backbone or the LLM. they're down 20%, while everything else that we're
So
talking about, your Anthropics, your Groks, Perplexities, are just up like fundamentally 30% or more, kind of
right,
on average. Like Perplexity, that's the outstanding play. That's up 3,000% from the start of the year.
right,
So yeah, I think that divide will kind of continue. And then if Clint were on, he always likes to comment. I mean, let's go the next step or peel the next layer back on what we need to power up this end of the industry, and it's going to be your chips, it's going to be your power,
right.
the power consumption. So there is a lot of there are a lot of layers here, a lot of picks and shovels that have to come into play to make this thing work. I think that's going to continue through 2025.
I would agree with that for sure. What do you think are any like developments like liquidity or like the number of stocks in like in the industry that are starting to, or perhaps tenders or like any of that stuff, any kind of market
Sure.
specific development things that you think are worth talking about?
I, I would be remiss to not talk about SpaceX and their constant ability to um, offer liquidity, right? Through
Hmm.
tenders because they don't necessarily need the financing. Um, I think they're setting a really nice example for other companies, and you're seeing that uh, with other names in the industry. I mean, outside of the SpaceXs and the AIs, you're going to get it
Right,
from names like Revolut or names that are going to want to go public, which I think
right.
is a really good thing. Uh, Offering more ways to get liquidity is also a signal to the market of, hey, we might not need to go IPO just yet.
Yeah,
So though I'm curious on your thoughts here, but though a lot of people are pointing fingers at 2025 as being a great year for IPOs in particular, I'm kind of thinking there are so many vehicles now to offer up liquidity, continue transparency in the private market itself. It has its own fostered ecosystem. We might see a few companies just go private. Like
yeah.
Animoca Brands went public for a cup of coffee and then came private yet
Right,
again, right?
right.
So I I think that technology is going to be something that we can get more comfortable with um, to not promote a big IPO market in 2025. So
Yeah, I'm there with you. I mean, I think that to me the biggest development just like structurally in the secondary market was how much money was getting raised, right? Whether that's a tender, a primary offering, and just to be clear, like in my opinion now, I don't see any difference between the two, right? So like I think when at some point when you start to raise so much money, like you're in the billions of dollars for a round, that looks and smells just like a secondary tender offer. Like there's people out there in the marketplace just selling that one stock.
right,
That's it. It's not like people are like, hey, invest into my fund. We're going to diversify across all these different companies. And this is our investment strategy or investment thesis. It's like there's so much money that needs to get raised. Everybody's standing up like SPVs. There's SPVs on top of SPVs. I mean, it's wild. So that's kind of one development that I thought really stood out in my mind. The second one was just how fast people were raising all this money. I mean, this is like, like a Databricks, like SpaceX, XAI did it twice, right? OpenAI did it earlier in the year. I mean, we're talking 5 billion, 6 billion, $7 billion. Anthropic's doing it, right? I
right.
mean,
And if
and
you can
like,
do that from the private market itself, what do you
oh,
need? What do you need retail money for,
dude,
right?
it's like,
So
well, what are Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley? Like, what are all these people doing? Like, I don't know what these investment bankers are doing because it's all happening in the venture capital land, right? I mean, this is a lot of money getting raised in a very short period of time. And the other thing is too, not that I've ever done any investment banking in my life, but if you're a CFO of a company and you're trying to go out and raise capital, there's no roadshow. You're not doing a roadshow. At least not my understanding is they're calling like the handful of people on their cap table, and then those people are going out and like doing the roadshow and raising the money for them. Maybe there's a data room, maybe there isn't, right? They're still raising the money.
I, th-
So
I will say I'm pretty confident there will be the data room, but you're right. whoever was in the prior round or rounds is just going to go help you out because they want to see your
Right.
mutual success on this, right? So they're going to help you carry that through, which is great. Uh, but it's interesting how much we'll call it wet powder we think there probably is in the market already that has to be reallocated to the prior round investments. So
Right.
if the venture capital firm already came in for your Series B or Series C, they need to have some extra capital to make sure you can get to that C or D. Um, I think that there's a lot of that sitting around, and maybe it won't go to the new companies coming in unless they're super novel.
Right.
And then we are seeing some data to say if someone comes in, it better be super novel, and it better have the hashtag AI. Oh, wait, we can't use hashtags on Twitter anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
But that's thematically kind of what we're seeing in there. But I do hope the appetite widens significantly in 2025 because you did see so much activity in those top 10 names
Right.
this
Yeah.
past
True.
year. You're kind of going to need to see not just the top 10,
Some
but the top
breath.
20 or 30
Right.
or even go out to 100, which
Yeah.
is much more what we saw in 2020, 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if that happens. I got to be honest. I'm not bullish on that. I think this 2025 is going to be all about AI as well, but we'll get to that in a second. Maybe last question on 2024. Like if you had to pick kind of a big winner or a big loser, I like to stay positive, so maybe we don't have to do a loser. But like if there was a big winner, like what was your big winner for 2024 if you had to like pick one company? Or
This,
maybe just in general, what was like the big win? Who was the big winner?
I mean, in hindsight and
Mm-hmm.
perplexity, I mean,
Really?
yeah,
Oh wow, I
they
wasn't
just
expecting that.
completely killed it. But with foresight, I would say Twitter. I
Okay.
mean, you basically got Elon Musk as the right hand man to the president elect. I think they're going to be pretty well positioned, um, just for the next 4 years.
You're talking
Uh,
X, like that
X
company. X.
X.com,
Okay. I
right?
got to tell you, I'm done.
What
I
what
have
what are your
so many
thoughts on that?
people calling me. I have so many people calling me for X stock. They're like dying, salivating to get their hands on it. And they're willing to pay what was it, $44 billion valuation? They'll
Oh,
pay.
really? Interesting.
They'll pay the 44. Uh, what's interesting and the reason and I actually think I could probably buy it at 44 to be quite honest with you because I put the feelers out there. I think I could probably pick it up. It would be like LP interest in another fund, right? It wouldn't be direct trade. But I explained to the investors, I'm like, look, this is what will happen. Like we're going to go and buy this thing at 44, okay? Or some number close to that, plus or minus. And then like we're going to get to the end of the year and we're going to have the auditors are going to be like, well, you have to mark this thing to market now, right? And also too from a regulatory perspective, you should probably market to market too. And that's like closer to like whatever it is, 11, 12. So I'm like, you're talking about a
Right. I think.
70% plus markdown. And I'm like, are you ready to see that on your statement? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you
I
ready
mean,
to see
but
that?
I would say you're at least doing the right thing here, right? Because you're actually getting some venture funds that probably wish to remain nameless have been buying at a discount in the secondary market, let's say other stocks, and then they
Yeah.
immediately market to last round.
Yeah, which I
So,
guess you could do. I mean, I guess
oh,
that's one valuation approach. It's kind of hard to like to say that when you got like Fidelity marketing it at whatever 11 or 12 billion. You know what I mean? That just doesn't. How
right.
do you? Fidelity's pretty good firm, right? So like, how do you say, well,
I've heard of them,
I'm
of course.
right, they're wrong. I just it's the stock is worth what it's worth, right? So but what's interesting, so that's where the financial advisors I work with are like, ooh, yikes, I can't like have my clients see something that's down 75%. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but I got to tell you, I do like that. Plus, X owns 25% of XAI now, so there's that, right? I mean, there's some interesting things. Definitely some interesting things for the company. To me, the big winner. I don't know how you like SpaceX.
So
I'd have
SpaceX
to.
is up 100%, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
99%. Um, but yeah, every time it goes to market, they could immediately shore up liquidity for anyone that wants to sell.
Oh yeah.
It's never pricing lower than yesterday.
No.
For the most part,
No.
it's been a consistent performer with a very low amount of volatility.
I
I mean, the
mean,
main volatility was a month ago when the thing shot up another whatever it was, 10 or 20% in a
yes.
day.
I mean, love that. I think, I mean, not to get weird about it, but as an American, like the idea, I remember as a child watching, like stopping school. I grew up in Chicago, right? So they would stop school and like roll in the TV so we could watch the spaceship launches. You know what I mean? It was like something that stuck with me. And now seeing this company like shoot rockets up and land them. And then this year they did Starship and they caught the damn thing with 2 arms, and Starlink's coming on. I mean, it's just like this, it's like a national treasure, this company. So like anyway, so like that's the business itself, I thought just was like incredible. Just incredible. And then on top of that, the value, and rightly so, I think, rightly so, the valuation just totally took off. I mean, it's just, I mean, like if I had to put my finger on something, even with all the stuff that happened with AI, I think SpaceX was the big winner, you
Right.
know?
And I'll give you a quote from Benjamin Franklin, 1751, that
Okay.
I'll put on Twitter.
All right.
Great estates may venture more. Little boats must keep near shore.
Mm.
This is no little boat, right?
No, it's
We're
not.
trying to go to Mars with this thing.
Yeah.
I think there was a recent tweet from Elon that came out today.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to pay $10 for high-speed internet at home? Right? I mean, a month? That's nuts.
That's
This
crazy.
is a guy that's making incredible strides. I mean, love him or hate him for his personality, but he's going to be positioned as the big winner. So maybe I'll change my answer from Twitter's going to be a big winner for 2025 to just Elon Musk is going to be a big
Elon
winner
Musk was a
for
big winner.
2025.
It is true. Well, Elon Musk was probably the big winner in 2024, right? I mean, the guy was like every single company he's involved in just is knocking the ball off the cover, right? So kudos to him, man. I think it's pretty awesome. But okay, let's talk 2025. This is the fun stuff, I think. All right, so looking forward 2025, give me, and we could probably talk forever on this, but maybe just give me one investment theme that you think people should keep their eye on in 2025.
The one I'm hopeful for, and
Sure. Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
not positive, but I'm going to say entertainment. Like
Okay.
entertainment got
I wasn't expecting that. Give it to me.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah, they got beat up in the private markets all last year. Like just a fair
What is
number
an
of
entertainment?
declines.
Tell me who you think is in that category. Give me some
Oh,
names.
easy. So ByteDance. So
Sure.
we
Yes.
just learned that ByteDance is not going to be taken out of our pockets as shortly as we expected, right? So
Yep.
that's good news for them. But I feel like your ByteDances, your Epic Games of the world, things like that are going to do pretty well next year because first off, they had a pullback, and secondly, I
Epic
think we're
Games.
going to have a little bit more disruption, more of a creator economy, and a lot of the bits and pieces of the AI infra. So the Sora announcement from OpenAI about content creation, like video creation, is going to be in our hands soon, or already
Okay.
is, if you want to pay
Okay.
for it. I I really think that should be very much in play for next year. And even when you bring it
Okay.
to like your wearables, that includes your Apples, your Metas, Google's updates. The stuff that Meta put out for
Yeah.
the Ray-Ban sunglasses. Who's not going to want to play around with some of that? And it's getting better and
That's
smaller.
true.
So
That's
yeah,
true.
what do
That's
you
true.
were
So
you just going to
it's
lean
funny.
into AI infra, or where's
Mm,
your investment thesis?
no. No, it's funny that you categorize a lot of those companies as entertainment, because I almost like Epic Games, I almost think of as like a virtual reality, augmented reality company with Unreal Engine, right? Like I think that's going to be huge. I think augmented reality is going to be the way that we interact with computers,
Right.
like in 5 years' time for the rest of our lives. And we'll joke about like, oh, can you believe that people used to carry phones around in their pocket? Like, what a
Yeah, I mean,
joke, right?
you're in New York. You remember 3 years ago or 4 years ago, Pokemon Go people are
Oh,
bumping into each other in Central Park looking for Pikachu. You
dude,
know,
I got to tell you something. I
and that was
almost
the
saw
first
like
taste.
two people get hit by a car, like running out into Sixth Avenue. I'm not kidding. Like I was having dinner outside, and all of a sudden there was like a sea of people running down up Sixth Avenue to Central Park, and like this car came screeching to a halt. And, like these two kids, like on their, it was crazy. I'm like right there with you. Like
Right.
augmented reality. Augmented reality, I think to your point on the Ray-Ban, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, right? Like that gave us, I think, a little taste. And then this thing with Google XR is coming out now. Like these are going to be all new platforms, all new apps. Like I truly believe it's going to be like the phone connected to the wall type thing for our children. They're going to be like, you guys, I can't believe you guys had phones, like something that you kept in your pocket. Like that's crazy. You didn't just like talk and see it and
Right.
like move your hands around and like manipulate stuff. Like that's, you know what I mean? It's, I
Well,
just, I
think
truly
about
think we're going that way.
how fast it's moving. So last Christmas, you were amazing, and you got us the rabbit
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
speech to AI
Right.
Q&A type device. I didn't use it for a ton, but I'd want to know like, oh,
No,
what's
well,
the distance from Chicago to New York, whatever it
that
is.
was
And
supposed to be AI agents and computer use, which is now called computer use. That's what they were talking about. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this for the guys. Like, that's going to
cutting
be
edge
cool to do
at the
computer
time,
use. You know what I mean? And then they didn't even do it. Those
right?
guys didn't even do it. It
But
was the
But
worst.
what happened? No, no, no. I mean, but it was for a year ago. I was like, you know what? This is pretty wild because I could even take a photo of an Excel sheet and ask
Right.
it what I would need it to do next. You know,
Ah,
it
that's
was
cool.
cool. Like OpenAI, Anthropic, Perplexity blew that thing out of the water.
Oh, it
Like
sure
now,
did.
you look back and like, I can't use this. Like,
No,
no.
I'm
And
waiting
now
for some update from them or like some like, hey, I'm waiting for them to drop something crazy just to make it all worth it, right? I mean, I thought
you
we
have
were going to
high
get that.
expectations there.
I thought we were, well,
Yeah,
that's what the guy was saying. He was like, oh, we're going to do basically what they call now computer use. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like you could just tell this thing to do stuff on your computer and it would go and do it. They called it like rabbits or something, right?
that's right.
And they just announced something, but it's not like Anthropic's computer use. It's not the same. It's not the same thing. But I got it. So okay, so my theme outlook for 20 humanoid robots. And this
Already
is just
2025.
purely investment focused. Okay, purely investment focused. I think there's three humanoid robot companies. Well, there's Tesla Optimus, right? But that's not like a pure play and definitely not in the private markets. But there's three humanoid robot companies that I have my eye on. One's Figure AI. All right. Brett Adcock is the CEO. He's great. He's incredible. The second one is 1X Technologies. Okay. And then the third one is Clone out of,
Clone.
they have offices in Poland and in California. Clone's wild. Okay, so first of all,
I've not heard of this one. The other two we have some visibility on the platform, but
okay,
I've not heard of Clone.
like first of all, if you're not anybody who's listening to this, if you haven't Googled those three companies and watched videos on them, you got to do it. It's and Tesla Optimus too. It is incredible. Okay, Clone will make your head literally pop right off your body. It's like they call it an android. So it's like a skeleton. It's like a skeleton. They have a muscle structure. They have like internal organs. It's crazy, man. It looks a like a person, and it like moves around, and they have a spine. It's like Westworld, man. Like no joke. This is December 2024. This is happening. Like we're gonna have humanoid robots walking around the planet. So Elon Musk said that he's forecasting, if I remember my numbers correctly, 15 billion humanoid robots on the planet in 15 years. And Brett Adcock, who's the CEO of Figure, said 8 billion in 15 years. If those guys are half right, and there's, let's say Adcock, we'll go with Adcock, 4 billion
Right.
humanoid robots in 15 years, they're going to start showing up soon. And we live in America, right? Like, you know, they're going to be here first, and we're going to have a lot of them. I mean, there's 330 million Americans. Like, everyone's going to have a robot in their house. like in a couple years' time. So my point in bringing this up for 2025, though, is that these three companies are out there. They are all like on Series A, Series B, right? And I think I believe we're going to start to see huge valuation pops from these companies. So I think
Right.
2025 is going to be the year of the humanoid robot. Okay. And
Oh man,
people are
I
going
was
to be
looking
like,
up Boston Dynamics too.
Boston Dynamic, talk about another company that got lapped by people. Like Tesla
So
Optimus,
that's interesting, right?
Figure.
So just add one more watch list if you're listening to this. Boston Dynamics, the evolution of their robot, like jumping over boxes. You know,
Right.
every year, every 2 years, they made pretty great strides. And if they are getting lapped, which I think you're probably right, I mean that's outrageous when you're
Okay.
looking at
So
these other firms, right? And
my
I was trying to pull it
understanding,
up on Yahoo Finance to see if there's anything there, and it's private.
so
So
my understanding with Boston Dynamics is that, well, I can't say what they're doing now, but prior to, they weren't using AI, right? And obviously all of these other companies are like are AI first, robotics companies. So that seems to be the big differentiator on how they're making such incredible strides. Like Figure's got this like really close relationship with OpenAI, right? Obviously Tesla's got they have the full self-driving stuff, which is the same technology that's AI driven. They got XAI, which will do the large language model stuff. So they'll do something there with Optimus, and then Clone and 1X are both kind of AI first
you make a
businesses.
great
So
point with the Tesla because if you really think about it, they've got a great grasp of the outside world to
yeah,
start, right? Because
yeah,
it's they've been raking in data for many years with the however many 10, 15 cameras that are on every Tesla.
yeah,
And
it's true.
then you can use that to train up the robot for outdoor use at a minimum, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people are saying. That's for AI training. Like the next big unlock is all this multimodal stuff. So you get like like Meta Ray-Ban. Everyone's walking around with a camera like pointing out of their eye, and you're picking up all that data and storing it, and then
Oh
using it for
God, yeah.
training.
Then you could use that, sell that off to train new robots.
So this is what I'm saying, Nick. Like all this stuff is kind of tied together. Like if
Oh man,
you can almost
me from 5 years ago it would be saying this is a crazy conversation, but it all makes
100%.
sense in 2024,
But
2025.
this is what I'm saying. Like stuff's going to start changing really fast, and I think how we engage with computers is going to start changing fast, and all this stuff is going to be just like the iPhone's only 15 years old. Can you even imagine walking out the door without your iPhone? Like you feel unnatural, right? So I just think some of these other mediums are going to start to pick up.
But I think that's what we want, right? So
Mm,
if I look at myself in 5 years, do I want to walk out the door without the iPhone? I
for
actually
sure.
do. I'd want to have a wearable
Yes.
and then still be able to do everything equally fast or faster from that,
100%. Yeah.
right?
I just think it's going to get inherently more human. That's going to be the wild thing about it. Like we went through this phase, not to get too like philosophical here, but we went through this phase where we had like computers, we were at a desk, then you had mobile, then you had apps, right? And everyone's like glued to the screen, and it's very not human because you're not seeing people, you're not talking with them. It's like a very unhuman thing. It's like very one dimensional, I suppose,
Right.
right? And then I think you're going to move to something where, like Clint's talked about, holograms, right? Augmented reality, where you're like doing a FaceTime, but the person's like in the room with you, and you're having like this like very kind of three-dimensional conversation with people. AI, you talk to the computer, it talks back to you, right? Humanoid robots. So
Yeah.
it's not
You
even
know,
a
you
box on your desktop. It's a human figure sitting in the room with you. You know what I mean? Like there's just a whole, your Roomba isn't this little square thing going around. It's literally a robot with the vacuuming
yeah,
in your room.
so Rosie from the Jetsons is in your room.
Yeah,
You have
man.
a little session, just chatting to her, be like, This is what happened at work today. How do you think I should handle this tomorrow?" And
100%.
while everything's getting Dysoned up, like
Oh,
it's great.
100%. Like I talk with investors all the time about it. So my last point on humanoid, and then we can move on. But I actually believe humanoid robots are going to become part of the family. Like a dog is part of a family. Like dogs don't talk, right? They just show up. They're really excited when you come home, right? And then they
Right.
like hang out with you on the couch. And that like on I know like people are probably might get upset, but that's kind of it, right? I mean, but it's like part of the family. Like you love your dog. Your kids love the dog. Kids play with the dog. Maybe the dog protects you. Some families like the dog protects you, right? In New York, we got a lot of these little tiny dogs. I don't think that dog's going to protect anybody, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's like, but the dog's like part of the family. I think these humanoid robots are going to be very much like that, except they're going to be able to talk. So they'll know you. They'll be consuming data about you on a daily basis. They know what Nick likes to eat. They know what time Nick gets home. They can see if you're in a good mood or a bad mood. They can say things to make you feel better. Like it's going to be like very human. And as these robots and these androids start to get more human like and lifelike, I don't like it's going to be tough for the human brain to kind of differentiate that from like a real actual biological person, I think. And then these things will never die. So like you're going to have the same AI robot. The AI inside the robot will be with you for decades. Your kids will grow up with it like they grow up with the dog and they love that dog. They'll love that AI to be their buddy, right? I mean, like this is going to be, and then it will never die. So like imagine
It's very
4 or
interesting,
5
right?
generations from now, you have like the family AI. Like they'll be asking your 4 or 5 generations. They'll be like, "Tell me about great grandpa Nick, great grandpa Nick in New York. Like, can you tell me a story about him?" And the
Or
AI
you
will
won't
like
even
rip
need
off his.
to,
It was there.
because you could actually bring back the hologram of me or you,
Yes.
and then you could have a
Yes.
conversation with someone from 2 generations prior, right?
100%.
So this is a, I don't want to change this conversation. I actually want to keep going with this, but here's your another competing view of the, instead of what everything you just described, which is you're in reality, this is where you live, and you have robots that are coming to be part of your reality. You then go the avatar route, right? Whether
Yeah.
you want to think Ready Player One or the movie Avatar, whatever it might be, you just supplant yourself, you put your goggles on, and now you're interacting in whatever world you dream up, or epic games, right? We're talking about them
That's
before,
right.
the Unreal Engine, or what the world that can be drawn from Sora, or just any other creator, right?
For
So
sure.
Disney wants you to go to Epcot. You don't have the money for the plane ticket, but guess what? You could sign up for this.
Yeah,
Or
and it's so real you can't even tell the difference
right.
between physically being there.
So now
But
you may
Nick,
not need the robot. You could just transport yourself after you do your day at the office or whatnot.
100%. But
Right.
can you imagine business travel? Like why get on a plane and fly anywhere? I mean, there might be
You
instances
hate
where you
flying
do
that
that.
much, don't you? You're like
I do
this.
hate flying.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Any
like,
approach.
but why do it? Why stay in a hotel? Like, why be away from your family? Why do all the travel? Like, unless you really need to physically be there in person, you could probably get a lot of business done through virtual reality or through augmented reality, right? So, like, I just think all of this stuff that we're talking about, right? You know, these are all investment themes. This is why I love this space, because this is all, there's going to be companies that haven't even started yet that will be in the top 25 of the S&P
Right.
500. I am convinced of it in the next like 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. And they need
And
investment money. They're all
yeah,
capital intensive, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I believe strongly, to bring this all back home, there will be humanoid robot companies in the top 25, top 50 of the S&P 500 in 10 years time. And there are no humanoid robots walking around on the street right now. And there'll be a humanoid robot company out there in 10 years time with a $1 trillion valuation. So I like, that is the investment theme for me for 2025. I think this like asset class or this sub asset class is going to present itself, and humanoid robots will become like a thing. I mean, we didn't even talk about the business application for humanoid robots. We've been talking about kind of personal stuff, but
Well,
the
that
business
might
side is
be,
even bigger, right?
yeah, the business side might be even more clear, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at all the automation plays that we've done since the Luddites, right? I mean, it's all just going to make every manufacturing role much more efficient. But then you take it out of manufacturing and you take it into, the hardest is going to be sales, right?
Right.
If you're trying to
Right.
do a sales role, you don't want to get the guy hung up on, or the robot hung up on, right? Um, but you could see a lot of those jobs being augmented or outwardly replaced with the AI. I mean,
For
we've even
sure.
seen the hamburger flippers, and I forget what company was doing it, but it was automating the hamburger flipping. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
why not? More of that. You
Yeah.
know, that's nobody likes doing that job. You
Yeah.
know,
It's gonna.
unless you're in the backyard barbecue and it's fun. You know,
It's
surrounded
true.
by family, right?
It's 100% true. I think it's just. I think the application will be definitely in factories first for these humanoid robots, but I can see them starting to come into the home, within the next 5 years. So it's going to be pretty cool. So okay, let's do like 10 more minutes, man. We'll hit these last two things and then we'll scoot. So okay, market developments for 2025. Anything like we talked about tenders, we talked about some liquidity, we talked about some of these. What do you think? Anything that kind of comes to mind for 2025 that you're expecting to see from like a market development perspective?
I expect the incestuous activity to continue, meaning larger companies investing in smaller companies
Okay.
and just getting bits and pieces of them, and that's timeless. You know,
Is this like you mean like a Nvidia coming in and investing in
in
like
core
that type of
weave,
stuff, or
right? Exactly.
like Apple? Got it. Got it. Got it.
That's
Got it. Got it.
that sort of idea. But then you could take it a step further and even have that second layer of now these multi-billion-dollar companies that are still private investing in the other companies that come before them, right?
Yep.
So currently reading like The Fish That Ate the Whale about Sam Zamuri right now, and it's the investment of I think it was United Fruit into his company because they
Hmm.
either wanted to see you succeed and track every movement or just watch you fail, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's a pretty timeless theme as well. But I think everyone's going to be a little bit beholden to everyone, and I I want to see what ends up breaking the ones that try to remain independent. I mean, that's always been our theme internally at
Yep.
PM Insights, anyways. But when you look at players like Reddit and how successful they've been at just picking up contract after contract, they weren't really attached or aligned to any one major player, that was trying to train an LLM like a Google or Amazon or anyone else. So I think that's going to be a very interesting, just general theme for 2025. Who's going to partner with who and be forced to alienate the competition of that larger player? What do you
Got it.
think
Got it.
on that? Is that it's kind of a weird one? It's not
N-
just
No, no, no.
fully
I
in one
I think
direction, right?
it actually dovetails into what I was thinking, because I don't I actually, you brought up IPOs earlier, right, for 2025. I'm not in the camp where we're going to see a lot of IPOs, right? I do think there's maybe one or two companies that will go, like CoreWeave, right? But I think it's predicated on what you said. There's plenty of capital that wants to go into these companies because you got large businesses like Nvidia or Apple or Microsoft or whoever ready to come in and make investments, who have a ton of dry powder, right? But also too, just the growth of the secondary market, wealth management industry is getting more invested into this space, into the private markets. There's just a huge amount of capital that keeps coming into this asset class, and I don't think there's, frankly, a really strong motivation for people to go public. Like, I can't remember who I was hearing talking about this. But they were talking, like, the Silicon Valley guys always talk about first principles stuff, right? And they were like, let's look at going public from a first principles perspective. Like, why would you do it? And they're like, when you have this much capital and it's this easy to raise the capital and the valuations are so attractive, like, it kind of begs the question, why go through all the nonsense of being a public company if everyone's happy,
Right.
right? And
And
you can
and
still
some of the
grow.
VCs do need to give the money back to their investors, but then they're able to tip it off into continuation vehicles.
Right. Or
Right.
this or the secondary market. So, like,
Right.
continuation vehicles, let me ask you this though. In my opinion, continuation vehicle is just another way of saying a secondary market transaction.
Sure.
Because you're going to throw it into another vehicle and you're basically just going to flip out all the LPs. You're going to take your old
Right.
LPs.
You're gonna get to nav it, hopefully fairly, which
Mm-hmm.
if anyone needs assistance, please reach out at
Yep.
contact@pminsights.com. But you flip it into the new vehicle and you're able to satiate and get DPI for your existing investors in the original fund, then anyone can move to the next one or be in contacted or
Right.
invest in continuation vehicles.
But just to drive that home,
yeah,
that's like one set of LPs selling to another set of LPs,
yeah,
and then it's just going into this continuation vehicle that continues on for, which is effectively
correct. It could
it
be
could
it
be an
could be
SPV, a single asset SPV, multi-asset SPV, but it's like this very simple structure that just continues on until there's some type of liquidity event on the other side of that, right?
that's how I see it. And
Yeah,
traditionally, I saw that as oh geez, it's going to be rough times ahead to get liquidity on this. So why don't we put it into the new vehicle, right?
mm-hmm.
Return some capital, and some of the portfolio is good and some of it's already gone bankrupt or what have you.
Right.
And now it's just, why do we want to get
Yes,
get this thing to IPO? We're doing fine, you
we're
know?
doing fine, but
And you
also
could run
too,
the
there's
company a
enough.
little bit better too. So the companies probably are happier with the ability not to be pushed by their VCs to IPO.
Right. Right. But also too, I mean, Nick, don't you think it's fair? Like there's enough liquidity now in the secondary market where people, like if somebody had $1 billion in like an open AI, they could sell $1 billion in open AI in the secondary market. Like no problem.
Right.
Yeah. I just,
Especially if it's a VC, because
yeah.
some of this is associated with where is it coming, and I'm not talking like the provenance way, but you know what? If Sequoia is trying to sell you $1 billion worth of something, you're like, that's probably okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I trust
That's right.
exactly where this came from, how they got in. I trust that they want to get
Although,
some liquidity, and then it's on its way out.
although I
Yeah.
will say to your point though, there's a lot of demand for a handful of companies, but then that demand kind of falls off, as you kind of move down the pecking
So you'd
order, if
start
you
to say,
will,
oh,
from
why is Sequoia selling this one?
right.
Why? Yeah.
Right. Like, if it's like fintech's not so hot, right? So if you're kind of a like middle of the road fintech company, that's maybe not like a nice thing to say, but if like, you're a middle of the road fintech company and your investors want to sell, they might have to take a discount or, maybe not, maybe it's a longer process to get out or it's more work to do it, right? Where I think, some of the larger companies that have a huge following or kind of in a hot asset class like AI, et cetera, they can just like it happens
Well,
overnight,
right.
right?
I mean, with a fintech, I mean, it's not like a sector did poorly. It did fine.
Yeah,
It just
yeah,
didn't do as well as AI, let's say. But
right,
I think what you're looking at there is you'd come back a little bit closer to fundamentals, and you'd want to know more about each company. You'd have to open up a more prescribed data room to understand exactly what's going
mm-hmm,
on.
mm-hmm.
Whereas with something like Perplexity or CoreWeave,
Yeah, just
what's
let
the
it
growth
rip.
rate? Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
Like, okay, I don't care about the multiple. Just get me in or no. And then I think you're just going to have that other segment of the market, and this is probably thematic as well. It should start to look just more like the public market anyway. So if I'm
right,
going to
right,
assess Adapar as a fintech, I'm going to say, okay, what's their growth rate? What's their revenue? How are their margins looking? What are the prospects for the next 3 years? And I'll just kind of go at it just like a research analyst would,
right,
But
right.
then for that, you're going to need more information you want that they may not normally share. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's definitely a different experience for all participants involved. So, okay, last one, man. What do you think? Who's the big winner for 2025? If you had to pick one company, right? Who do you think's gonna, not investment
the,
advice, right? So we'll say that right up
not
front, right?
investment advice, the
Yeah, but
company
is there
of
anybody that
Elon
jumps
Musk,
out?
anyone in
Yeah,
Elon's company.
is there anything that you
That's,
think is going to be a big pop? Right? You think it's just any Elon company is going to be a big winner in
I
2025?
I would say that is the closest thing to a safe bet with a decent amount of return on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 My take is XAI, which is an Elon Musk company. I think they're going to be the big winner. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see them up at an OpenAI type valuation, like 150 billion, $200 billion by the end of next year. Because two reasons. One, they're going to launch Grok 3.0, right? I've also heard there's a buzz that there might be like a Grok, which is like their, large language model, name of their large, like only app, specific app that would come up that would be like the ChatGPT app for OpenAI, which I think a lot of individual people, consumers would use and pay for, right? If they did that. So that might drive home their business model a little bit more, perhaps, and make it easier for people to understand. Um, And I think Grok 3, the buzz is that Grok 3 is going to be like this incredible model. So if that in fact does pull through and Grok 3 is a good model, or a better, superior model to what's out there, I think that could be super interesting. Also, I got to tell you, man, I've been using Grok versus OpenAI, and the ability for them to tap into X data, like real-time X data,
Ooh,
is actually a differentiator. Like for financial services people, it's a noticeable difference.
Right.
Right. So like anybody who's kind of doing things like more like, I'll call it real time, the answers
That's why
tend
we
to be
like
more
Perplexity
accurate.
quite a bit. That thing.
I haven't used I got to try Perplexity. I haven't really used them a lot. Right. So yeah, I would say the Grok 3 coming out will be a catalyst for their valuation. Right. If they do the app, I think that would also be a catalyst for their valuation. And then the third thing would be they just did this raise, another $6 billion raise, and they're going to buy another 100,000 GPUs. So, and like this, that company, that they're like standing up these data centers in like record time, right? There's like press about how like the 100,000 GPU data center should have taken like multiple years to stand up, and they did it in like a couple months.
Well,
So, I mean,
this is the positioning I think you want, right? Because you're having a lot of good vertical integration here. You need data centers, but guess what? It's part of the family. So it's just super clever.
yeah.
In
So,
terms of
and
how
like,
that's
look,
being done. But
if
we
they can,
still don't know the cost. I
no,
mean, didn't Sam Altman just come back saying he needs more money
he
after
needs
the
even more. Yeah.
however many billions upon
Well, there's this
billions he's
ongoing,
already needed?
there's this ongoing debate about like, is scaling done based on the size of the data center? Like Elon Musk doesn't think so. He's letting it rip, right? So now I think maybe some of these guys are like, well, if this isn't true, in fact, that we're not done scaling the ability of the model and the size of the data center, then it's like, it would beg the question. It would beg the, it's like, so then let's build like 1 million GPU. Let's build 2 million GPU. Like, when does it stop? It just like, let's just keep going. So, I mean, if that's the name of the game, then yeah, you need capital, right? To do those things. But if Musk can stand up, so Grok 3 release, Grok only app, the 100,000 extra 100,000, so the 200,000 GPU data center online, and then if they can get like a Grok 4 out before the end of next year, I think that does it. I think that's like $150 billion company, right? Plus,
Yeah, and then for efficiency, I think we brought this up on a prior one. If someone asks something simple, you don't need Grok 3, Grok 4.
yeah,
You just need an earlier, simpler version, or check
right,
that someone's asked that before. Hey,
right,
how many inches in a foot? Oh, this has been asked before.
right,
It's not going to change, because you don't want to spend $5 on that search.
right,
Um,
right,
that's
right.
an exaggeration, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
so
think those costs are definitely coming down already too. So then your margin's going nicely up.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my take. I think XAI is the big winner for 2025. But okay, man,
Let's
this is
see.
good. This was a fun one, man.
I'm looking forward to it.
We went down the humanoid
we'll have
robot rabbit hole, but
we'll
I
have to
think it was fun. It was a
we'll
fun
have to
conversation.
play this in another year. See how we did.
Oh my gosh,
See how
can you
many
imagine?
humanoid robots are out there
Yeah,
delivering
track it
mail.
out. I don't know if there's going to be a lot, but I would love to buy one. It would be fun to buy one, right?
Yeah. Well, let me know. We'll we'll,
You go first, Aaron.
yeah, you go first, or we'll have a 6-pack and just decide on what we want to have it do to test things out. So
Yeah, I hear you, man. I
all right,
hear you. All right, brother. I
great
appreciate you,
stuff.
man. Have a good New Year, okay? If I
Yeah,
don't
happy New
talk to you.
Year.
All right, champ. Okay,
Later,
I'll
man.
talk to you later.
Bye.
Cheers.